Hey guys, we're going over your Interpreting Graphs task cards, which is your math assignment for today. So I'm going to read the questions and answer choices out loud to you. And the first thing you're going to need to do is type in your first and last name at the top before we get started with the first question. All right, so the first question, it asks, how many chickens are on Hackberry Farm? All right, and this graph shows you at the bottom the type of animals that are on Hackberry Farm, and then on the side it shows you the number of animals on Hackberry Farm. So for this first question, you have to tell me how many chickens are on Hackberry Farm. Okay. Is it 16, 16 and a half, 17, or 18? All right, so for this next question, how many more pigs are on Hackberry Farm than goats? How many more pigs are on Hackberry Farm than goats? All right, so is the answer 3, 6, 9, or 1.5? And make sure you're using your numbers on the side to determine how many animals are on Hackberry Farm. All right, so the next question is, what was the total amount of money raised by selling popcorn? What was the total amount of money raised by selling popcorn? All right, so this graph shows a popcorn fundraiser. And at the bottom, it shows you that each bag of popcorn is equal to $100. And then on the side, it shows you how much second, third, fourth, and fifth grade sold for the popcorn fundraiser. So, but you have to tell me how much money was raised by selling all the popcorn. All right, so is it $2,100, $2,200, $2,300, or $2,350? All right, so the next question uses the same graph, but this question asks, how much more money was earned by second graders than by fifth graders? How much more money was earned by second graders than by fifth graders? All right, was it $4, 4 containers of popcorn, $400, or $250? All right, the next question is, which two clothing types, when you add their numbers collected, will equal the number of shirts collected? So which two clothing types, when you add their numbers collected, will equal the number of shirts collected? So you need to determine how many shirts were collected. And then you have to figure out what two of the pants, shorts, and shoes can you add together to equal the amount of shirts collected. All right, so would it be the pants and the shoes, the shorts and the shoes, the shorts and the pants, or the shirts and the shoes? Okay. All right, so for the next question, it's going to use the same graph. How many more shirts were collected than shorts and shoes combined? How many more shirts were collected than shorts and shoes combined? All right, so to be able to answer this question, you need to add together how many shorts and shoes together were collected. And then you have to see how many more shirts were collected than the shorts and shoes together. All right, so would it be 5 more shirts, 40 more shirts, 20 more shirts, or 10 more shirts? All right, so for the next question, how many students read 25 minutes or more? How many students read 25 minutes or more? So each X equals or represents one student. All right, so was it 5 students, 2 students, 8 students, or 7 students? All right, so this next question uses the same graph, and it asks how many students read between 12 and 24 minutes. How many students read between 12 and 24 minutes? So what you might want to do is put a dot or put your finger where 12 minutes would be and then where 24 minutes would be. And then you would count the X's in between those 2 points. All right, so would that be 0 students, 11 students, 10 students, or 13 students? All right, so for this next graph, it is vegetables planted. So at the bottom, you have the number of plants that were planted. And then on the side, you have the type of vegetables that were planted. So you have carrot, cucumber, beet, and beans. All right, so how many fewer beans were planted than beets? All right, so is it 2.5 fewer bean plants, 20 fewer bean plants, 25 fewer bean plants, or 15 fewer bean plants? All right, this next question uses the same graph, and it asks you to identify the equation that you would use to identify how many carrots and cucumbers were planted. All right, so you have to determine which equation you would use for how many carrots and cucumbers were planted. Is it 60 plus 35 equals 95 carrots and cucumbers? 65 plus 30 equals 95 carrots and cucumbers? 65 minus 30 equals 30 carrots and cucumbers? Or 60 minus 35 equals 35 carrots and cucumbers? All right, so for the next question, it's going to be a graph about miles traveled over summer break. And at the bottom, you see that each car represents 100 miles. And then on the side, you see how many miles each person traveled over summer break. So you have Stella, Paul, Ricardo, and Lee. All right, so the question they ask is a total difference of 150 miles existed between which 2 people? So there is a difference of 150 miles between which 2 people? Is it Lee and Stella, Ricardo and Lee, Paul and Ricardo, or Stella and Ricardo? All right, so the next question uses the same graph. And the question is, Abby was accidentally omitted from this pictograph. She should have 6 full cars and 1.5 car beside her name. How many miles did Abby travel? All right, so Abby should have had 6 full cars and 1/2 car beside her name. So how many miles did Abby travel? Was it 65 miles, 600 miles, 625 miles, or 650 miles? How many fewer grape snow cones were sold than melon and cherry combined? How many fewer grape snow cones were sold than melon and cherry combined? All right, so at the bottom you have the different flavors of snow cones that were sold: grape, cherry, melon, and swirl. And then on the side you have the number of them, of each that were sold. All right, so how many fewer grape snow cones were sold than melon and cherry combined? Was it 12 fewer grape snow cones, 7 fewer grape snow cones, 2 fewer grape snow cones, or 14 fewer grape snow cones? All right, so the next question is going to ask to use the same graph. And the question is, identify the equation you would use to identify how many snow cones other than swirled were sold. So how many snow cones other than swirl were sold? All right, so then at the bottom, you have 5 plus 12 plus 7 plus 10 equals 34 snow cones. I'll read that one more time. 5 plus 12 plus 7 plus 10 equals 34 snow cones. 4 plus 12 plus 7 equals 23 snow cones. 5 plus 11 plus 7 equals 24 snow cones. Or 5 plus 12 plus 7 equals 24 snow cones. All right, so the next question has a new graph, and the graph is the raffle ticket sales. So at the bottom, you see 1 ticket equals 100 tickets. And then on the side, you see how many raffle tickets 2nd grade sold, 3rd grade sold, 4th grade sold, and 5th grade sold. So the question is, 5th graders also sold raffle tickets. They sold the same amount as 4th grade and 5th grade combined. I'm sorry, I read that question wrong. Let me read it one more time. 1st graders also sold raffle tickets. They sold the same amount as 4th grade and 5th grade combined. How many raffle tickets did the 1st graders sell? So you know that 1st graders is not on this graph, but they sold the same amount as 5th grade and 4th grade sold combined. So does that mean that 1st grade sold 500 raffle tickets, 400 raffle tickets, 350 raffle tickets, or 150 raffle tickets? All right, so the next graph is pennies grabbed in one hand. And then at the bottom, you see the different numbers of pennies, and then each X represents one student. Okay, so what was the number of pennies grabbed by the largest number of students? So how many pennies had the most amount of students grab them in one hand? Was it 33 pennies, 6 pennies, 36 pennies, or 22 pennies? All right, so the next graph is school supply drive. School supply drive. And then at the bottom, you see how many number of items were collected. And then on the side, you see the types of items that were collected. We have pencils, glue, scissors, and folders. So the question is, how many bottles of glue were donated to the school supply drive? How many bottles of glue were donated to the school supply drive? Was it 250 bottles of glue, 275 bottles of glue, 300 bottles of glue, or 350 bottles of glue? All right, the next question has the same graph. Identify the equation you would use to identify how many fewer folders were collected than pencils. Identify the equation you would use to identify how many fewer folders were collected than pencils. So was it 400 minus 150 equals 250 fewer folders? 425 minus 125 equals 300 fewer folders? Is it 450 minus 150 equals 300 fewer folders? Or 450 minus 150 equals 350 fewer folders? All right, guys, and then after you have completed all of those questions, you need to hit the submit button so that your teacher will get the questions that you answered. All right, guys, I know y'all did awesome with that, and I'm very, very proud of y'all.